Hey guys, what's up? Welcome back to my channel. My name is Natasha LaGrega if you're new here. Today I wanted to do a pretty casual chit chat about some college things that you would probably want to know before you go to college and maybe don't know yet. So this is going to include sororities and fraternities, professional versus non-professional. I'm also going to talk about what it's like having pets in college, if you can have pets in the dorms and things like that. I'm also going to talk about having your car, if you need your car, can you have your car? And finally, I'm going to talk a little bit about roommates, picking a roommate and how that whole process might work. So with that being said, if you guys like this video, please give it a like, and if you are interested in seeing more from me, subscribe down below, and let's get started. Alright, so first on the list is sororities and fraternities. So I did not know until I went to college that there are actually two types of sororities and fraternities. There are non-professional ones, which are probably the ones you know about that you rush at the beginning of the year and you can live in-house and things like that. There are also professional sororities and fraternities. They're usually just called professional fraternities actually, and those are not a situation where you can live in a house. They're both genders. They usually involve a rush process that's not as intensive as the non-professional sororities and fraternities, but you still do rush and you do a lot of the same things, but you don't live in house, and they're focused on a professional area. For example, there's business fraternities for people interested in business, and there's pre-med fraternities and healthcare fraternities and things like that. So first of all, let's talk about the non-professional sororities and fraternities. These are, like I said, probably ones that you have heard of. Some examples are Kappa Delta, Chi Omega, Alpha Chi Omega, Sigma Kappa, Delta Gamma. I don't know. I'm not in a sorority. I can't name them all off the top of my head, but those are just a few. There are tons more than that. So on the topic of non-professional sororities and fraternities, I'm going to start with the sorority side because that's the side I know a little bit better, being that I'm a girl and a lot of my friends who are girls tell me about it. But what a sorority looks like if you're interested in joining one is usually when you first come to college as a freshman, you will go through a rush week. And a rush week is the recruitment process. So it'll be a whole week before classes start. You'll get to move in before everybody else does for that reason. And you'll go through different events every single day of the week that help determine what sorority you're going to be in. It's sort of a process in which sororities pick you and you pick a sorority, and they narrow it down to what your best fit is. And then at the end of the week, you have a bid day, which is when you find out what sorority you're in, and there you go. Once you've joined a sorority, you have the whole first semester in which you learn about the sorority before you're officially a member. And then at the end of the semester, a lot of times you take an exam and you become a member of that sorority. A lot of sororities require people to live in-house their second year of college. The reason this is because, well, first of all, your first year, you've already usually signed up for a dorm or some other living situation, so it doesn't make sense to have people live in their first year. But the second year, they can get that all arranged ahead of time, and it's usually a great way for sororities to get the girls to bond and things like that. Depending on the college you're at, it may be required to live in-house or may not be required to live in-house, and sometimes you can live in-house more than 1 year if that's what you want to continue doing. Oh, also I want to mention really quickly that you don't have to rush at the beginning of your freshman year. You can rush at the beginning of the second semester of your freshman year, or you can even rush when you're older as a sophomore or junior. So they have 2 rushes a year basically, and depending on what you want to do, you can rush at those different times. I know people who've rushed right at the beginning of college, I know people who've rushed in between semesters, and I know people who've waited a year to rush and then have joined a sorority. So that's kind of my little rundown of sororities. Fraternities have a similar process where they do a rush week, but I would say they're a lot more casual than sororities, and fraternities can also live in-house. A lot of times sororities and fraternities will have formals together. Now that we've done kind of our little rundown of sororities and fraternities on the non-professional side, I'm going to talk to you a little bit about my personal experience and why I didn't join a sorority when I came to college and why I have no plans to now. And it's not because I don't like sororities or fraternities or think they're bad. That's not the case at all. I have so many friends who absolutely love being in a sorority, and it's been a really positive experience for them. For me personally, the reason why I didn't join a sorority when coming to college is because I'm kind of an introvert. I think my English professor explains it the best in the way she describes people like me are introverts with a strong social persona, meaning that I love talking to people, I love public speaking, I love engaging with others, hence, I want to be a physician, I want to be around people. But at the end of the day, I need to go and I need to be home in my cozy spot by myself. That's kind of my vibe. I can't constantly be around people. I'll get way too exhausted and stressed out, honestly. So I didn't join a sorority mostly for that reason, because the idea of living in house just sounded a little bit too chaotic for somebody like me who really needs their alone time. And so I'm here to tell you that if you guys aren't interested in joining a sorority, it is totally okay. Most people do want to join a sorority, and if you do, that's awesome. Seriously, so many of my friends are in sororities and they love it. But if you don't want to be, I'm here to tell you that that's a-okay. A huge reason why people join sororities and fraternities is to make friends when they first come to college. Especially if you're going to a big university, it can kind of feel like it swallows you. There's so many people and so much going on that it can be kind of hard to make friends. So that's a great reason why a lot of people join them when they initially come to college. But for those of you who maybe aren't interested, I'm here to be an example of you can definitely still make friends without joining a sorority. I have tons of friends. Some of the ways I've been able to make friends is I'm a part of my university's honors program, so I can take honors classes that are a lot smaller and aren't these big, huge lecture hall classes. And so that allows me to get to know people in the honors program and become friends with them. I also work in a research lab, and that is a huge, important outlet for me. I love working in the lab, working with the graduate students, and my professor and the other undergraduate students have really allowed me to make great friends in that environment. I also started an on-campus organization, so through that I'm able to make more friends. To make a long story short, I'm definitely not in lack of friends. So for those of you who are maybe like me and might feel a little pressure to join a sorority but don't want to, I am here to be an example of telling you that that is okay. You don't have to join a sorority, and there are so many other ways that you can make friends and have a great support system in your college experience. Not to mention, if you're living in the dorms, you'll be on a floor with tons of other students just like you, and a lot of times floors become really great communities and people make tons of friends on the floor they live on. So there's definitely not a lack of places to make friends, even if you're at a huge university where it can feel like this enormous pool that you're just being thrown in. So now let's move on and talk about the professional sororities and fraternities. This is something that a lot of people don't really know about until they go to college, so I'm going to kind of break it down for you. Most of the time, these organizations are just called fraternities because they contain both women and men, so you don't have to be one gender to join most of these organizations. And professional fraternities are named professional because they're focused on an interest. So you can have business fraternities for people who are going into business. You can have pre-health fraternities for people who want to become healthcare providers. You can have pre-law fraternities for people who are interested in law. These professional fraternities do not have a house that you live in, so it is much more casual, I would say, than joining a non-professional sorority or fraternity. These fraternities still have meetings every other week. You still have your little and your big. You do all of those things, and you still have the first semester where you learn about the organization before you can officially become a member, and you still do a rush week. So a lot of times these organizations can be really beneficial for people who want to meet more people in their area or field. So now, kind of backtracking, I'm going to talk a little bit about my experience with professional fraternities. So I rushed twice for a pre-med fraternity called Phi Delta Epsilon, and I am not in Phi Delta Epsilon. Maybe I'll make a whole nother video about that. But I had a pretty crazy experience in both of my rush weeks, but I don't think Phi Delta Epsilon is a bad organization by any means. I think that they're a great organization and they're really helpful for a lot of people, and I even think the chapter at my university is a great chapter. I just think the bad experiences I had came out of some poor leadership decisions. For that reason, I'm not in a professional fraternity because I had such a negative experience. And that's okay. I'm again going to be a living example for those of you who are maybe pre-med and don't want to join a professional fraternity. That's okay. I still have tons of friends and I'm doing really well on my track of being pre-med. Okay, let's move on to our second topic, which is having pets in college, living on campus or off campus, how all of that works. Look at those little baby girls. Yeah, we're gonna talk about you today, huh? Oh, this is Ariel and this is Jai. So like I said, my personal situation is I have 2 cats and I live off campus. So before we talk about my personal situation, let's start with having pets on campus. So from my knowledge, if you live on campus in a dorm, pets are pretty much not allowed due to allergies and other reasons like damage to the rooms and stuff like that, unless there's a very specific reason. For example, a seeing eye dog. Also, something I learned from that experience was pets who are emotional support animals are allowed to live in the dorms with their owners if they have a specific certification or a doctor's note about needing that pet with them. As far as I know, those are the only cases in which pets are allowed in the dorms. So if you have an emotional support animal or another therapy animal, then you should be okay. The dorms are very understanding about all of those needs. As far as living off campus having pets, if you live in an apartment, there is usually going to be an extra charge for having pets, usually a deposit and then sometimes an added monthly charge to your rent for having pets due to the fact that furniture can be damaged and things like that. But from my experience, pets are pretty much allowed. Sometimes there's restrictions. I know there's one apartment complex in here that has a restriction on the size of dog you have, which I think is kind of a weird restriction, but you know, just kind of depends on where you're deciding to live. Obviously, if you're going to live in a house, then that's kind of up to you and you get to have a pet if you want. Again, with apartments, if you have a therapy animal or an emotional support animal, then a lot of those charges are actually taken away by law because of the fact that there is a physical reason for having those animals. For example, both of my cats are emotional support animals. I get very anxious and stressed out due to schoolwork, and they are a huge help. So I've actually talked a lot to my doctor about this, and because of this, both of my cats are certified emotional support animals, and so they live with me here together, and it's a great time. So if you guys are wondering about how that whole process works, I hope I explained that better for you guys. Also, as far as taking care of pets in college, I would say my personal advice being if you're deciding between a cat or a dog, I would go for a cat. I am not against dogs at all. In my childhood, I grew up with 3 golden retrievers and 2 cats, so I'm a huge dog and cat person. From my personal experience, cats are just so much easier to take care of when you're super busy, like you are in college. For me, I can sometimes be on campus for 2 hours, or I can be on campus for 12. So having cats is perfect for me because I can take care of them easily, and if I'm gone a long time, I don't have to worry about their needs for going to the bathroom and things like that because they just have their litter boxes. I mean, honestly, taking care of a cat is pretty much like 15 minutes a day, and then you just get this wonderful animal that loves you. All you really have to do is feed them, get them fresh water, and clean their box. So they're pretty simple. I also recommend if you're wanting to get an animal, I would get 2. And you might think this is contradictory to logical thought, but the reason I say that is because if you have 2 animals, you're taking care of them the same as you would take care of 1, but it makes me feel a lot better if I'm gone for a long time because I'm not leaving them alone. They have a playmate. Not to mention, 2 animals can play with each other in ways that I could never play with the 1 animal. And I love giving them that companion, that animal that's just like them. Those are just kind of my personal experiences and my advice on having pets in college. Again, if you guys have more questions about this stuff, definitely let me know and I would be so down to answer them. Okay. So let's move on to number 3, having a car. Do you need a car? Should you have a car? Can you have a car? All of these important questions. So first of all, I'll start off by saying that I do have a car. Like I said, I live off campus, and so that's literally how I get to campus every day. There actually are buses that run through a lot of the off-campus college apartments. So that could be an option if you're close to a bus stop, if you're living off campus and you can just ride the bus to class. For me, I have a car because I'm not just going to campus, but I'm also going places and volunteering and doing a ton of stuff that's off campus. So for me, it's pretty vital to have a car. When I did live on campus, I also had a car for those reasons. But if you do live on campus, you technically don't need a car. Pretty much in my experience, almost everything I needed was on campus. If you are interested in having a car, you should know that you will have to pay for a parking pass. Usually that's a one-time fee, not a monthly thing, and from my experience, you sign up for a year. There was specific parking for if you lived on campus, and then there's also other parking for the people who live off campus. All right, and let's wrap it up with number 4, roommates. So this is another topic that I think I honestly just need to make a whole video dedicated to my personal experience. But for right now, I'm gonna start off with how you find a roommate, that whole process, along with my personal advice from my experiences. So going into college, when you're signing up to live on campus, if that's what you're doing, you can just sign up for a room and then you'll get a random roommate, just whoever fills that room. Or if you want to live with somebody in particular, usually when you sign up for a room, you can write down somebody's name with you and that person will get added to the room. This can be a really tricky process because, at least in my university, when people were applying to college, they were given a number, and that number, depending on how low or high it was your order of signing up for the rooms. So because I applied to college early and got accepted early, I had a really low number, and therefore I was able to get the room I wanted with my roommate. But for people who signed up a little bit later, which is a case for a lot of people who are deciding where they want to go, they were given a later number, and so they had a lot more trouble finding the dorm they wanted with space for them and whoever they wanted to live with. So just things you should keep in mind. If you know you've got somebody you really want to live with, you should really apply and try to get in as quickly as possible. Okay, so with that being said, if you guys don't just want to get matched with a random person, if you want to be able to find a roommate on your own but you don't know who that is, that was actually my situation, so I'm going to talk to you a little bit about the techniques I used to meet somebody who I wanted to live with so I wouldn't have a random roommate. So I actually used a roommate app. There's a ton of them online, but this roommate app was basically like a dating app where you fill out information about yourself, your lifestyle, and who you would want to live with, as well as your living requirements. Like I knew the dorm I wanted to live in, I knew that I wanted to live in a 2-person room, and that was it. And then you can kind of look up other people and message them and things like that. So it really is just like a dating app. So through this app, I was able to meet the person I lived with. I'm gonna call her Pineapple because I want to protect her identity. So I met Pineapple and we chatted online, and then we were able to meet in person and talk more, and we agreed to be roommates. So when I first met Pineapple, I thought, oh my God, we'll be great. We have the same major, we're both pre-med, she did dance, I did dance. I was like, wow, we have so much in common. This is gonna be so great. And I'm here to tell you guys that none of that matters, literally. What matters is your lifestyle. And the thing that made Pineapple and I just not good roommates together was that we had totally different lifestyles. I originally thought she was going to be like me, but I quickly found out that was not the case. And so I strongly recommend, if you're signing up for one of these roommate apps, that you be really honest about the way you want to live and you're currently living and how you're going to live in college, because that is really important. And if you lie about that and then you move in with somebody who's the total opposite of how you really are, it's just not going to be good. From my personal experience, it doesn't matter how much you've got in common with your roommate that you're looking for. What matters is your lifestyle. You need to be talking about around what times you like to go to bed, how much you like to go out, if somebody likes to party, if you don't, if somebody likes loud music and you don't, if you're really clean and organized and somebody isn't. These are all things you really want to know before you live with somebody. You also really need to talk about logistics for buying things, not just saying that you're each going to pay half, but really making sure that you have a plan so people actually follow through with doing their half, basically. I also recommend having a cleaning routine that you make from the beginning of the semester, because if you don't do that and you're like me and you're very clean and you live with somebody who's not, then it kind of feels like you're being used because you do all the work and they never help or thank you. So just something to keep in mind. Set your boundaries really early, because if you don't set them really early, then they're never going to be followed through with. And if you try to set them later, it's just going to be a big fight and people aren't going to respect your boundaries. I also recommend not living with your best friend. This is kind of a case-by-case scenario. My boyfriend actually lives with his best friend and they get along pretty great. I think they're a little bit of a special case. But in general, I would say don't live with your friends. Don't live with people you currently know. I think kind of one of the benefits of living with somebody you just met is because you're not super close with them, there's this level of respect that's there that you may not initially have with a friend because you're so comfortable with each other. A lot of friends break up their friendship because they live together. Living with somebody seems simple at first, but it's really not. It can be really difficult. All right, so that was my quick little college chit chat about some things that you might want to know before entering college, but that you maybe don't know yet. I hope I answered some of your questions, and if you have any more questions about any of these topics, please let me know. I'll also look into filming more videos about my personal experiences in some of these areas that I mentioned a little bit today. But with that being said, if you guys like this video, please give it a like. Give me a comment down below if you've got any questions or any personal stories you want to share. Also, please subscribe if you want to see more from me, and of course hit the notification bell if you want to be reminded when I upload. I've been trying to upload about once a week, but because I am so busy, that might vary a little bit, so no promises. But thank you guys so much for watching. If you want to follow me on social media, you can follow me on Instagram and Twitter. My Instagram is Natasha_Lagrega, and my Twitter is just Natasha Lagrega. So with that being said, thank you guys so much for watching. I really hope I helped you out with some of my advice, and have a great day, guys. Bye.